Here we are, day one of the back garden renovation. We've got an 8x8 circle of grass that's going to come up and be astroturfed. There'll be sub-base going down first, then a layer of sand, followed by the turf over the top. We've got this step and small paved area that's going to come up and get astroturfed as well. I massively underestimated how hard it would be to dig up some grass. The soil underneath was hard and compacted clay. The grass itself only came up in clumps. You get a good little patch that'll come up a foot at a time, and then it'll come up in fist-sized balls. Made things really difficult. Disposing of so much material posed a bit of a challenge. I did look at a skip, but I'm fortunate to have an overhanging deck coming off the back of my garden with about a 4-foot gap. A quick removal of a couple of the boards, and it was dead easy just to wheelbarrow and tip all the soil and the grass down into the gap. I'll worry about what problems that causes later. In total, it took me 4 afternoons to clear all the grass. It felt like the end had never come, but I was more than happy when I got that final piece lifted and I was down to pure earth. Getting delivered, I had 6 tonne of materials that got dropped off on a high-ab. There's 4 tonne of hardcore and 2 tonne of sand. Then it started, that never-ending task of wheelbarrowing round 4 tonne of hardcore to level the ground and give me a nice smooth base. Didn't help that my wheelbarrow wheel punctured early on. As you can see, it's quite a tight gap. I've got multiple scrapes and bruises on my elbows, but it were worth it when I got the final bit round and the base was down rather crudely and it still needed levelling, but time to move on. We go 2 hours later, all dug up. Nice pile of weeds to dispose of. A tiny bit of backfill underneath this edge. After roughly raking and levelling, I move on to bringing round the 2 tonnes of sand. I found that just placing them at sporadic points allow me to then spread it out and continue to get things nice and even. And then the fun. I rented a whacker plate or vibrating plate from a local tool hire centre and spent an entire afternoon walking round and round in circles, stopping intermittently to use my plank of wood to try and make sure that I was filling in any gaps that were appearing where the earth sunk too much. This is the following day after it rained quite hard. Again, just filling in some gaps and going round. Sadly, because of the rain, it did sink in several spots, but it was just the same process of filling in and whackering over. The top took a lot more material than I thought it would do, but that was good because it got rid of the last little bits that I had. I then moved on to turfing. The rolls themselves were very heavy and I couldn't manoeuvre them on my own, so I enlisted a little bit of help from the father-in-law. He's done his garden before, so it's always good to have some advice and help on hand. Lining the 2 rolls up neatly proved harder than I thought it would. They were so big to move, so we went round, due to it being a circle, and took off the corners on a bit of a loose trim, just to help us out a little bit. After gluing the joins, I placed down some beams and weighted them down with anything I could find, from some leftover roll for the top part to some bags of sand and a toy box. The endless task of trimming the edges neatly was next. It took surprisingly long time, nearly 2 afternoons. I could have gone quicker, but I wouldn't have been able to make sure that I didn't make any mistakes. And the last thing I wanted at this stage was to put a big tear or have a big hole somewhere. This bit was really fiddly. There's a small step, and I thought instead of trying to cut it flush, I'd just roll it over, pin and glue it down, wedge it back in with a little bit of decking. I thought that'd make it look a bit neater. And then I turned into one of them people that brushes the lawn. No doubt at some point I'll be out with a hoover. The process just repeats itself on the top, albeit with it being a smaller piece, I was able to do it on my own. There was no neat way to get the underlay, so I just put it down and hope that the weight of the grass on top would hold it firm. Turned out quite alright in the end. The gap on the left hand side is not going to be a problem because there's going to be a playhouse there. Now we have some after photos going from both angles. It still needs brushing up a little bit more, particularly where the joins are, just to blend them in. But all in all, I'm quite pleased with the results so far. Thanks for watching. There'll be parts 2 coming next. I think it's going to end up being multiple parts because there's the entire garden to do.